I did it.
6 weeks.
Please come to order for the December 21st, 2017 Ascension Parish Regular Council Meeting. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. The invocation will be led by Councilman Randy Cluott.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, as we move into the season to celebrate our Savior, your Son, Jesus Christ, we ask that everyone pick up their Christianity and look around and help those in need. This time of giving is just so wonderful. We ask that everyone look around and help the elderly. We just went through some bad weather last month. We've got some cold weather coming. Simple things that can help people. Just take an hour out of your day. We ask that for your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. And dear Lord, one special prayer, we ask that you look upon the West family and the Spellagine family for the loss of one of our citizens, Mr. Emerson West. We ask that you keep them through these holidays and let them enjoy his life and not mourn his passing. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looks like, is that right, Councilwoman Casso, the only council person we have missing? There are no chair additions tonight. For public comment, please come to the podium, pick up a card, a red or a green card, and return that to the council secretary, Ms. McKee, here. And you'll be allowed to speak 3 minutes when the item comes up on the agenda. Mr. President, you have a report?
All I want to tell y'all is I got a text a while ago from Congressman Graves that said they passed a bill in the House to eliminate duplication of benefit policy, provide at least $600 million in recovery and rebuilding funds to finish the co-meet diversion. Passed the House very strong, headed to the Senate, and it is looking to pass there. So that's really good news.
Good news.
So that's a good Christmas present. So anyway, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the consent agenda, Ms. McKee.
Roads for acceptance into the parish maintenance system as follows. Ascension Commerce, 5th filing, Luke Drive, 1,356.45 feet. Industrial Drive, 2,316.35 feet. Approval of resolution and capital improvements plan as required by Louisiana's Parish Transportation Act. Approval of final change order for ENG 14023, St. Landry Edenborn Connector Road. Approval of substantial completion for ENG 14023, St. Landry Edenborn Connector Road. Approval of balance and change order for ENG 17012, asphalt reconstruction and overlay 2017 task 1. Approval of substantial completion for ENG 17012, asphalt reconstruction and overlay 2017 task 1. Approval to renew and extend contract with Fenstermaker to finalize the design for the Roddy Road Church Point Roundabout project. Proposed ordinance to authorize the Parish of Ascension to purchase or acquire right-of-way and or servitude for the Babin Road Bridge Replacement Project. Approval of transportation impact fee credit agreement between the Parish of Ascension and D.R. Horton, Inc., Gulf Coast for construction of L.A. Highway 44 road improvements. Amendment number 3 to master contract for professional services with Providence Technical Services to extend the end date of the contract to June 30th, 2018. Amendment number 1 to master contract for professional services between Gulf South Engineering and Testing and Ascension Parish Government for geotechnical assistance to increase and not to exceed amount of $150,000 to include additional testing. Certificate of Substantial Completion, Getro General Contractors, LLC, Galvez Lake VFD Station. Resolution to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement of similar terms and conditions of the original agreement with PI Entertainment and Ascension Parish in lieu of reimbursement as provided in the contract dated March 22nd, 2017. Approval of engagement letter with the arbitrage group to prepare the arbitrage earnings report for the 2007 series jail bond issue. Approval of debt service policy. Annual contracts to be renewed for 2018 as follows: Acadian Ambulance Service, Access Communications, Ascension Medical Clinic, Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, Ascension Parish Fire District Number 2, BFI doing business as Republic Services of Baton Rouge, City of Gonzales, Comet, Corporate Mechanical, Damian Johnson, Data Keepers, Designs Interactive, Dr. Robert Barnes, Dr. Jason Adams, Excel Software Professional, MasterVac, Prairieville VFD, Fire Department Number 3, Resolution Services, River Parish Security, Russo, Maika, Southland Fire. Bid items to accept lowest responsive bid as follows: exterior lighting repair, governmental complex, Rescom Electric, $29,820. Bunker gear and accessories for firefighters in Fire District Number 1, BGS LLC, $2,150. Base bid per set, coat and pants. Bullard Eclipse LDX 240 thermal imager, BGS, $6,795 or $6,295 with trade-in. ES automatic sandbagging machine, Covington Sales and Service Inc., $96,550. Base bid trailer mounted, $16,950 takeaway conveyor, and $6,450 for pneumatic ring clipper.
Is there any member would like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Motion to.
Motion approved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Benny Johnson, sorry. Any opposition? Any discussion? Hearing none, consent agenda is adopted. Item number 7, approval of changes to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4010B, related to maintenance surety bond, and we have one speaker on that tonight, Mr. Billy Aguilar.
Thank you, Councilman. Since Mr. Terry Casio is not here. Gentlemen, if you're going to do this, I spoke to Jerome about this, but in the second paragraph, there needs to be this is supposed to be while the third filing is going on. If you're going through the first and second filing or whatever subsequent filings you're doing, there needs to be a way to stop the maintenance bond, I guess, and you need to add a sentence, and the sentence just basically needs to say, after completion and replacement, and it needs to go in after the 12-month period bond in the middle of the second paragraph before the amount of the bond determined by the parish engineer. You need to say, after completion and acceptance of the subsequent phases and inspection of prior phases, the additional maintenance surety bond shall be canceled. You just need to have a means for the parish engineer to cancel that maintenance bond at that time when the subsequent filing is completed. Thank you.
Okay. I think we have Jerome has a proposed amendment to what was introduced. Is that correct, Jerome?
Chairman Dawson, council members, yes, I do. And basically, we put in the language in that second paragraph that appears in your package to basically outline what Mr. Aguilar just said. What he's basically saying is that if the construction is complete in the third phase, that's using phases 1 and 2 roads, that we should be able to cancel the bond at that point because they're no longer going to be traveling along those roads. So that's the argument he's making on this, right?
So your amendment, will you want to go over your amendment?
Yeah, my amendment basically took the language that we had before, and instead of having one bond that would be posted, we would basically separate it into 2 bonds. And the first bond would cover all of the project that we typically cover, all right? And that would be for 18 months instead of 12. With the amendment, we're asking that you allow us to ask the developer to post a second bond. And that second bond would cover all the roads in a multi-phase project that are being used for the construction traffic that would utilize those roads entering into the third phase. So let's say that we have a three-phase project. Phases 1 and 2 are completed, but phase 3 is being constructed now. We want the developer, in this case the subdivider, to post a bond to guarantee that there's going to be no damage to the roads that we've already taken into the parish, right? Because of construction traffic. And that's what the second one does. So instead of having one bond that covers all of that, we're gonna have two bonds, right?
So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we still have to go through introduction and have to go through the ordinance procedure, so.
Correct.
You know, I think what we're looking for tonight is a motion to either adopt as was presented from finance or to be amended per Jerome's recommendation, and then to have that get in the ordinance line. Mr. Kluart.
Right. I would recommend that, you know, we entertain Mr. Aguilar's, you know, comments on that as well.
Well,
Basically, right now, we're asking that they post an 18-month bond, and he's saying, well, we've finished the construction in phase 3. Why keep that longer than we need to, right? And so there's some argument to that.
Well, I think we're gonna need some
We need some
precise language, you know,
Sure.
so
I agree
I
with
would say if we could do that upon consideration of the ordinance.
Okay? We'll be happy to do that.
Mr. Kluart.
Yeah. I'm prepared to make the motion as amended by you, and, but what do we get the language in there?
Yes.
And he's basically, what Mr. Aguilar is speaking of is just that he can complete the bond after the construction's finished.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
it.
Yes, that's it.
You got a term for it, but if he finishes before the term's up, he can go
Yeah.
ahead and
And
relieve it.
what we may do is change the language to leave it at the discretion of the parish engineer, like we've done in some prior language here. And that
Okay.
way, the parish engineer can say that we're okay with basically stopping the bond.
Because that'll come back in front of us if we do this at that time. We've done it
Yes.
before.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? So we have a motion by Councilman Kluart to adopt this as amended in the version that Mr. Jerome has. You have a second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any discussion? Mr. Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jerome. Mr. Aguilar, for your comments as well. I just want to praise the Transportation Committee and just put into the record that this is long time overdue. I'm happy for the increase of 6 months. Had my druthers, I wouldn't mind seeing it 24 months. Thank you, Aaron, and the committee.
Further discussion, questions, opposition? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Item number 8, general business. Make sure I don't have, right. Request for quote, boiler replacement, Ascension Parish Jail, emergency request, Ms. Shivers.
Good evening. On December 13, 2017, the Purchasing Department received one quote to replace the boiler at the Ascension Parish Jail. Administration has deemed the boiler replacement as an emergency request. After review, the Ascension Parish Jail requests approval to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this project with a not-to-exceed value of $45,000.
Motion, Mr. Chairman. Second.
A motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman John Cagnolati. Any discussion, any questions, any opposition? Hearing none, that motion's adopted. Item number 9.
The Purchasing Department received 3 quotes for material and labor to repair the Hillaryville wastewater treatment plant diffuser. After review, the Ascension Parish Utilities Department recommend accepting the lowest responsive quote submitted by Mitchell Contracting and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this project.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluart, second by Councilman Satterley. Any discussion, any opposition? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Item number 10, request for qualifications, Master Land Use Plan 2, Center for Planning Excellence, CPEX, Finance Committee and Planning Commission recommendation, and we have a speaker on that tonight, Ms. Catherine Gopel.
Good evening, Councilman, citizens of Ascension Parish. Merry Christmas. This recommendation came from the Planning Commission, whose chairman, Matthew Pryor, has stated that the master plan does not have to be followed. It's just a guide. Has he or his other commissioners even read the 39-page plan? If the master plan is not followed, why are we wasting $450,000 for a plan that won't be followed? Could these dollars not be used for other priorities like road improvements that will actually improve quality of life for citizens in our community? The original master plan adopted in 1998 cost approximately $75,000, was a product of input from the residents, and represented the people's vision for Ascension Parish. In 2010, CPEX assisted in the development of a master plan proposed by an outside consultant, Winston & Associates, costing $350,000, and was soundly rejected by the citizens of Ascension Parish and never adopted by the council. Why are we giving CPEX another $450,000 for the development of a master land use plan when the public rejected the last plan they proposed? They will bring us a boilerplate proposal, just like they did in the city of Gonzales, dropping down into our ordinances code to fit their plan. The bait and switch is to manipulate the public to believe that their ideas are ours. If you really want to solve problems stemming from growth and development, this council would update the traffic impact study and the drainage impact study and place additional criteria in the Unified Development Land Code. These two studies come back consistently no impact for every development that has been proposed for the past 25 years. It is any wonder that we have traffic and drainage problems? Clearly, the majority of this council has no will to solve the most pressing problems related to growth. Recently, Councilman Lawler has pigeonholed the revision of the traffic impact study in the Transportation Committee that he chairs. We are still waiting for the drainage study related to the 2016 flood. Clearly, this council has the will to waste another $450,000 of the people's money. Consultants continue to receive contracts for work done in our parish while the people pay and receive very little benefit. Our government is broken and dysfunctional because of poor leadership and wasteful spending. Voting for this contract is wasteful spending. You own your vote and any label associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Fournier to come up, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the council. I have Chairman of the Planning Commission, Mr. Matthew Pryor, and another commissioner, Julio Dumas, here, along with Boo Thomas of CPEX, and they're ready to speak on this subject. But I'd like to reiterate some items that we talked about when we first brought up this matter before the council last year, or earlier this year, asking for the funds to do this study. Since the parish population in the year 2000 was 76,627 people. Right now, in the population estimate for 2016 is 121,587. We had about a 59% increase in population from that 16-year period. We are the fastest growing parish in the state of Louisiana for that 16-year period. And there's only one exception to that, and that's the people moving back to St. Bernard Parish after Katrina. Every year since then, we have been the fastest growing parish in the state. The process that began in 2009, we had CPEX as a consultant to the parish, and they helped prepare the scope of work on the project. CPEX has since gotten larger, gained more expertise in preparing these plans. They prepared an excellent response to our RFQ, and our selection committee chose them of the two submittals that were provided to the parish, all right? So with that, I'd like to ask if you'd entertain Mr. Matt Pryor, who would like to make some comments on this, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come up and speak to y'all. I was not only on the Planning Commission, and we unanimously adopted the recommendation of the Selection Committee. I was on the Selection Committee for choosing the contractor or the provider who would get this, and that was CPEX. In looking at the proposals that were submitted, y'all had allocated the money for this. And in looking at the proposals, it was unquestionable that CPEX was definitely the most qualified company to place a bid in for the revised master plan. I think it's equally undisputable that we are in desperate need of a new master land use plan. The last one was the only one that I've seen, which is in the Land Development Code, the 39 pages, says in its opening statement it's for the years 2001 to 2003. And you just heard Mr. Fournier tell us that we've had a 60% growth in the parish since that time. And there's really no plan to accommodate that growth when every other public body is making plans to accommodate and manage the growth that is here, that is coming. Growth rate is about 2.5% to 3% per year. Every year we are in the top 100 of the Forbes magazine's fastest growing counties in the country, top 100 out of I don't know how many thousand counties there are. This is something that we need as the Planning Commission and as the Zoning Commission. We all, even though we have some disparaging views on how growth should manage, we all find the value of having a plan in place. And yes, it is a plan. Ultimately, anything that gets adopted is a change in the ordinance that you have to do. As the Planning Commission, we can't change the ordinances. We can make those recommendations. But it's something that was desperately needed in 2010. It should have been passed back then. It's needed now. The commission is resolved to do it. I'm resolved to go out there and argue for the plan because we need a plan. We need a vehicle to drive our parish forward into the future because without it, we'll have chaos. And that's what leadership is about. You are the elected leaders. You have appointed the Planning Commission as the appointed leaders. It is our job to create the vision and drive the parish forward. And having CPEX, who is clearly an expert in planning, they've been hired by the City of Gonzales to do their master plan. It's clearly the best option, and we need to embrace that and be leaders of our parish and move forward. So I'm going to ask that you adopt the recommendation of not only the Finance Committee, which is most of y'all, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Selection Committee, and approve CPEX as the company to put together our new land use master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask Mr. Fournier and yourself, if you don't mind, to stay up there, and I'll open the floor up here. And any members have any questions for either Mr. Pryor or Mr. Fournier? Mr. Lawler.
What type of timetable are we looking at on this?
Right now, we're in the stages of developing a scope of work and putting that together. I'm going to estimate, probably a 12 to 14 or 15 month time period on this. Right? That includes meetings out in the public, meeting with the general public, having workshops, things of this sort. Right?
Okay. Another question I have, and maybe Boo can help answer this. As far as a traffic master plan, we are currently that's in a hold phase, but I'd like to get it moving again. Is that something that you will need to assist you, or that can be done in conjunction if we do a master traffic plan along with this?
I'd like to preface
both
Bruce's
go ahead.
remarks, please, by that. When we submitted the RFQ out for the public, one of the two of the items that we mentioned in that RFQ was that there's going to be coordination with our consultants on both the transportation plan that's being prepared as well as the drainage plan. Right, and so that was a huge part of the RFQ process. We didn't want to duplicate those efforts, but we definitely needed coordination with the land use plan with those two processes that are going forward right now. I'll let you explain.
And generally, when you do a comprehensive land use and transportation plan, you have that as part of your plan. Y'all are kind of ahead, but it's going to be, so the coordination between those two huge contracts that you have with the land use plan is critical. And so you need to get this started right away so that you know how all this fits together. So yes, that's a really important factor that needs to be part of everything that we do, everything that is done for the comprehensive plan.
And I think Jerome touched on the drainage also. I was going to ask that one
Yes.
separately, but same answer.
Absolutely.
And y'all will work with HNTB and everybody else
We
that's
work
already.
with HNTB a lot and are very, very impressed with them, and we have a great working relationship. And I've already been talking to them just to say, you know, HRECN is kind of leading those, but we also are working with their sub-consultants too on other projects. So
Thank you very
it should be
much.
a good working relationship.
That's all I have.
Mr. Kluart.
Yes, you three, y'all touched on it briefly, and Aaron did too, on the drainage plan. And, you know, based on representing one of the areas that was hit hardest in the last flood in the Seminole area, and looking at, you know, land use and drainage plan, I would like some real good consideration to go into that. While we want to maintain a quality of life, we do not want to govern and zero the value of the people of Santa Monica land. Keep that in mind. And we'll be working with you on that.
We're fully aware, and we'll be staying in touch with you on that as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jerome. Thank you, Catherine, public speaker, Ms. Booth, et al. And Merry Christmas to everyone. I rise tonight to speak against this plan, but I want everybody to know, in whatever actions I take on this henceforth, going forward, I'm a great believer in planning. Else I would not have accepted the role of chairman of strategic planning, one of the council's many standing committees. However, I find the arguments of Ms. Gupple tonight to be, unfortunately, that's an important word here, compelling. History is important, lest we repeat the same. I do believe money could be better spent on something that's even more needed. And you say, what could be more needed than a master plan? And of course, something that will actually be used, because Ms. Gupple pointed a finger at you, Mr. Pryor, stating that, and I've heard you say this, that this is just a guideline and we can't use it within or without discretionary authority to turn down subdivision developments. We need, thinking back at the council, things in our laws, specific things in our codes, in our Unified Land Development Code, which is a good segue to her second argument that the money really could be spent better improving TIS and DIS, traffic impact and drainage impact studies respectively. Because the point is true. We frankly have failed miserably, and I know this. I was a commissioner before I was duly elected by the people in District 4. I served back in 1915. Pardon me, that's my second term.
Telling your age, Doc.
Tell my age, 2011. And we weren't following the plan then. And that was at the time when all the Winston Associates plan, I guess it was, came out, and you guys did assist. That was another point Ms. Gupple made on the master land use plan. CPEX did. And I've heard, Jerome, the argument that they're older and better, and sounds like they've grown up just like we have with what was it, 59% growth between 2000 and 2016, so forth and so on. What really piqued my interest this evening, though, is Mr. Pryor, you said, and I quote, without it, meaning the new plan, we will have chaos. I humbly submit, sir, and anyone else who's willing to listen, that with the old plan, we had exactly that, chaos. I mean, we just didn't follow it. And it has a wonderful, and I sure hope, I know we're going to do this, over my vote or whatever, but it has a wonderful guiding principle in it, and I sure hope it's reiterated in, quote, a new plan, especially when it costs the taxpayers of this parish $500,000. And that guiding principle, I don't know them by numbers, but I remember it as a commissioner, said that we are, as commissioners, to discourage, quote unquote, development where there's inadequate infrastructure. And that, Ms. Boo, is exactly what happened. Since '98 all the way to the present, We haven't given a rat's patootie in this parish. To me, the attitude has been, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Let's develop for the sake of developer. We need more taxpayers. I mean, I don't need to tell any of you experts up there in planning, all three of you. American Planning Association says that don't cut it. For every dollar you're going to bring in for every rooftop and taxes, the burden on the infrastructure is threefold, plan or not. So we've got some serious hurdles to jump here beyond just agreeing to spend another $500,000 tonight. We need a plan that will incorporate discouraging development where there's inadequate infrastructure. It's what I ran on, by the way, the first go-around. Apparently it resonated enough to get me elected by 3 votes, and sometimes I wonder, boy, if just one more mom and pop would have voted the other way, it would have been Mr. Pat Bell's problem and not mine. But it is what it is, and I just felt compelled on the record to say the things that I just said. I believe in them strongly, and I just hope and pray that everyone will respect my opinion tonight, and I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? What's the desire of the council?
Motion to accept.
Got a motion to accept by Councilman Cagnolati, second by Councilman Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? We have opposition, Madam Secretary, if you will, open the machines. You guys root around there and find your button.
Technology.
Okay. So, as everybody cast their vote, please close the machines. Okay, the motion is adopted. Thank you very much.
Could I say something?
Take a second or two.
Okay. Merry Christmas. Thank you for doing this. But I also just want to tell each of you that if this is going to be successful, that every one of you needs to be a leader in this and to be part of it and to listen to your own constituents and then bring them to the planning process. With that, we will be successful, and it's totally up to you.
Thank you.
We can give you a great plan, but you've got to get it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, item number 11, resolution providing for the canvassing the returns and declaring the results of special election held in the parish of Ascension, state of Louisiana on Saturday, November 18, 2017, to authorize the amendment of Article 5, Section 5-04, C2 of the Home Rule Charter for the parish of Ascension, state of Louisiana, to change the voting requirement from 2/3 vote of the governing authority to 2/3 vote of the governing authority members present at the vote of the employee's appeal to be effective January 1, 2018. And Mr. Dugas, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. With respect to the pro se verbal regarding the votes cast for the amendment of Article 5, Section 5-04C2, Human Resources Department of the Home Rule Charter for the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, pertaining to the process for hearing appeals of the decisions of the Personnel Review Board, be amended to read, after any hearing, the review board shall submit their advisory recommendations to the parish president. The decisions made by the president in these matters shall be final unless overruled by a 2/3 majority vote of the governing authority members present at the vote of the employee's appeal. There was found by said account and canvass that the following votes had been cast at the said special election in favor of and against, respectfully, the proposition as herein above set forth at the polling places, to wit, for 2,906, against 2,416, a majority of 490 votes for the proposition were in favor of, therefore passed. And I would ask the council for a motion to accept the results as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion's adopted. Thank you, Mr. Dugas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Merry Christmas to all y'all.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Item number 12, approval of cooperative endeavor agreement between the Parish of Ascension and the Ascension Parish Courthouse Construction Committee, and to authorize the parish president to sign said agreement. Mr. Parrington.
Yes. The state statute which created for the new courthouse provided for all matters pertaining to the filing charges imposed by the provisions of this section and those related to Ascension Parish Courthouse, the Ascension Parish Clerk of Court, the Sheriff of Ascension Parish, and the judges of the 23rd Judicial District acting en banc, and the judge of the Parish Court for the Parish of Ascension shall have authority to enter a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Parish of Ascension in conjunction with the design, construction, renovation, equipping, furnishing, operation, and maintenance of the Ascension Parish Courthouse. That group is asked to have 2 members serve on the selection committee. Our statute provides for 5, so that they can, by cooperative endeavor agreement, they're asking that they be allowed to participate in scoring of the applicants for the process.
Okay. Pleasure of the council. Motion by Councilman Kluot.
Second.
Second by Councilman Lawler. Any discussion? Mr. Sadley.
Yes, I would like just, Mr. Chairman, for the record, to show who the membership is of this, is it courthouse committee or?
I think that's in the, isn't that in the resolution?
Well, I can read the sheriff, and so I know who that is, and the clerk of court, but it says 2 judges, and I don't know who those are.
It says the judges of the 23rd JDC en banc, which is all the judges plus the parish court judge.
So the ones when we go to the meetings that do,
So
Judge Lambert.
So Mr. Parrington, the number of total membership is how many?
Well, it's the 5 judges acting en banc, but usually, whenever they meet, usually the chief judge attends the meeting, not all of them, and the judge of the parish court.
So Judge Vertigus and Judge Lambert are who is usually at the meetings when, and I thought that Judge Vertigus was acting, the chief judge was named in there. I don't have it in front of me.
Not in this part here, but he's been acting on behalf of the judges.
Yeah.
He's the chief judge at this time.
Well, what I show, Mr. Chairman, is the chief judge of 23rd JDC as well as chief judge of APC are listed.
And that's Judge Lambert and Judge Lambert of
Right, so
Ascension
I
Parish.
would think you are correct,
Okay,
as far as who's going to sign off on this document.
okay. Any further questions?
No, sir?
Any other discussion, questions? Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion is adopted. Item number 13, amendment of a resolution adopted on September 21st, 2017, approving Project Xenia, Praxair, parentheses, for participation in the industrial tax exemption program to replace project name with company name. Ms. MacArthur's not here tonight, so I guess I'll. Okay, got a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Kluot. Questions, discussion, opposition? Hearing none, that resolution is adopted. Item number 14, amendment of a resolution adopted on September 21st, 2017, approving Project Magnolia, parentheses, air products and chemicals for participation in the industrial tax exemption to replace project name with company name.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluot, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I missed that last one, but I need to recuse myself from this vote, please, sir, as well as the last one.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, that resolution is adopted. Planning and zoning recommendation, contract agreement for Levon Malden Jr. and Brady T. Diaz, property located on the west side of LA Highway 73, approximately 1,000 feet south of Post Office Road. Zoning Commission recommends approval. That, do we need Mr. Fournier, or is there any questions?
Make that motion to accept zoning commission recommendation to approve.
We have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert. Second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? Opposition?
Right, it's in my district, and people have talked to me that don't want it, but I realize it's going to pass. Just want it in the record.
So we have opposition. Ms. McKee? Please open the voting machines. Okay, please close the voting machines. Okay. So that motion is adopted. The introduction of ordinances. Before we start that, I wanted to just do a little housekeeping. I think since the time I've been sitting here, may have drifted on the procedure for introducing an ordinance. So I'm going to take just a minute to refresh ourselves about what the Home Rule Charter says about the enactment of an ordinance. And, it says that an ordinance may be introduced by any member of the governing authority or the parish president after introduction, and at the same meeting, the introduction can be rejected by not less than 2/3 vote of the governing authority. So, accordingly, the introduction can be done by any council member. No second required, no debate. If a member objects, they may move to reject. After a second, debate may follow, then requires 2/3 of the members for rejection. As with any other agenda item, the public may comment before consideration. Now we have introduction of ordinance, modification of the Unified Land Development Code related to contract agreements. Zoning Commission recommends approval. Motion to introduce.
Second.
No second required, just
Oh, I'm
one
sorry.
member. All right, and no objection. Ordinance is introduced. Item number 17, introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 12, fees pertaining to contract agreements. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Motion introduced.
Got a motion by Councilman Satterlee, then introduce. Any objections? Item number 18, introduction of ordinance to amend the Personnel Policy Manual to allow transfer of sick time for employees in need.
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Lawler to introduce. Ordinance is introduced. Number 19, introduction of ordinance to authorize the purchase of 5.437 acres of property from BASF for the
Motion.
purchase price. Got a motion by Councilman Kluot. Motion is introduced. Public hearings. Item number 20. Is it 21? No, there's none on, oh, they got 20. This is 20, okay. 20, reading of ordinance to amend Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to medium industrial and to light industrial, zoning review ID 1399.17, portion of Tract Z and being a portion of Buzzard Roost Tract for SLC, LLC, located on the northwest corner of West Robert Wilson Road and North Robert Wilson Road. So we have first, Mr. Malonzo, we're going to have some public comment. And we have first.
Mr. Chairman, we do have public, don't they get to speak during the public hearing on that?
Well, that's what I'm about to call. Well,
No, I gotta read yeah, we read the ordinance first and then we do the public comment period after that, sir.
well, they've got a, there's a little bit of a quandary because, they wanted to talk on item number 20, which is where it's on the reading.
It may have just been a misunderstanding.
Read it first. Huh?
Are you, who is this, Mr. Butt, Alex Butt? Are you okay to wait till? Oh, okay. Well, we need, Mr. Parrington.
Yes. This ordinance amends the official zoning designation for 62.75 acre tract of conservation of medium industry and light industrial. This rezone is identified as zoning review PZ 139917-Z, whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution 1974, whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within this jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993 identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances related to regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the official zoning map of Ascension Parish was last adopted May 19, 2015. Whereas the Parish Council reserves the authority to make changes to the official zoning map by ordinance. Whereas the request has been processed and is compliant with the procedures set forth. Be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the official zoning map of Ascension Parish is amended to reflect property identified as Exhibit A as medium industrial and light industrial as the official zoning designation. In the event any portion of the ordinance ever held invalid or unconstitutional by any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. The effective date of the ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The exhibits are Exhibit A, the legal description, B, the plat map, and C, the aerial zoning map. The ordinance have been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Okay, public hearing.
Motion to open public
Got a
hearing.
motion by Councilman Cagnolati to open the public hearing, second by Councilman Johnson. Okay, we have the, first on the public hearing is Mr. Alex Butt. Okay.
All these others are. Mr. Councilman, members of the council, need just a quick second here, because there's some confusion between the homeowners as to whether what we've been presented with and this, and I think Kelly may even have a different map as to what's actually in the packet and what we're talking about and voting on. I've got a, I don't know if that's on there or not, but I've got a completely different map that we were given in the beginning, which doesn't really match what we've got here. My biggest problem is we keep getting told different things, or I'm hearing different things. I've heard everything from trailer parks to nothing but straight up industrial businesses and warehouses. There's no plan here. They're over there working, running dump trucks all hours of the night after dark on a little bitty skinny road. None of this is approved. I mean, I don't even know why we're standing here if they're gonna start doing work when nothing's approved. That road is not wide enough to run these dump trucks on. Got people that walk there, but you know, their kids walk, older folks walk around that neighborhood, flying up and down that road 45, 50 miles an hour. That's my first problem with this. The second one, you know, whatever gets put into the packet here, I think we need to know, not continue to change it all the way up until the final vote. That's all I have to say tonight. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, Kelly Anderson.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Our issue is that we're not against development. We're against development that threatens our property value. We're against development that is not supported by proper infrastructure. The wonderful representative from CPEX that got glowing reviews just told you all to get involved in the process and listen to your constituents. We have a large group of constituents that are opposed to this rezoning of Buzzard Roost to industrial usage. We are residential. We oppose industrial zoning. That's not what we bought. You're exposing us to flood risks. Part of it is on the floodplain. I've been over all of this with you. We've tried compromising with the landowner. It's not about who the landowner is, it's about what the rezone application is. And it is not a good deal for us. It risks our health, our safety, and for the zoning department principles that were brought up to discourage where there is not infrastructure, to discourage development in the 100-year floodplain, that's number 7. To protect public safety and property, number 1. Manage growth, number 2. Preserve the rural character of the parish, number 3. It seems to go against all of that, and the people don't want it. That's the bottom line. So we're opposed to industrial rezoning on this property. We've talked to a lot of you about it. I don't understand why the rush to develop just for the sake of developing, because that's what it feels like we're doing here. Developing for the sake of developing. We don't need it. There's empty for sale industrial property a mile down the road. You're about to have a new master plan. We could wait and see what that master plan tells us about traffic, about drainage, all of that. Let's collaborate together and come up with something that's not a lose for the residents. It could be a win-win. So we're asking you to support what the constituents of this area want and oppose this rezoning. Thank you. And again, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Danita Overa.
Good evening, Mr. Council and members of council. My name is Danita Overa, and I live off of West Robert Wilson Road. I've wanted to first take this opportunity to thank each and every one of y'all for listening to us, because we do have a lot to say. I've got a mixed emotions about this right now. During the week, I was going for the rezoning, but as of today, I'm no longer for it. I spoke with Mr. Melanson on Monday, me and my husband both. He wanted to speak with me and him. So sure enough, I met with him. He informed us, to my husband and I, that the property, which is still in conservative area, would be homes, okay? As of today, I found out that there won't be no homes. Now, I feel this way. If you want me to trust you, then you best trust us. And the thing is here is that I don't need someone to stab me in the back or look me straight in the face and then turn around and stab me in the back. Now, I want to trust Mr. Melanson on this rezoning. I really do. But you know what? It ain't going to happen. It can't happen. First of all, the thing is here is that when you shake on someone's hand, my father always told me, when you shake a man's hand, agreeing on something, that's agreeing. And you don't go back on your word. Well, the thing is here, I've lived here 18 years as of January 28th of next year. I enjoyed my peaceful quietness. But to look now, if he has plans on putting metal buildings in front of my home without the residents like he said he will, I don't think any of you would like that, not in your front yard. So the thing is here, he's upset us. He's upset me very much today, okay, after what I'm hearing. So the thing is here, don't do what you say you're going to do. Put the homes in front of us like you said you're going to do. But don't sit here and lie to us and put metal buildings, and you're going to leave that conservation area conservation and not put nothing in front of us but a bunch of trees, and then you're going to do your medium zone and your light industrial? No, we can't have that. First of all, the thing is here, I spoke to him on Monday and I asked him. He said he will not use West Robert Wilson Road. Okay, fine. I hope I can trust him. Right now, we have enough traffic going down West Robert Wilson Road that today I witnessed a driver going at least 70 miles an hour down my street. Now, the thing is here, y'all have got to think of our safety first, because you work for the people of Ascension Parish, not the developers. None of us work for developers. Let me not forget to say that we are the people of Ascension Parish, and our voices should matter to each and every one of you. And I thank you, and I wish y'all all the Merry Christmas, and may God bless y'all.
Thank you. Mr. Grady Melanson.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, for this opportunity to come before you. The piece of property that we're talking about is on Robert Wilson Road. I have my brochure just like they do. We are the largest landowner on Robert Wilson Road. I'm not sure where they came up with the stuff they're talking about, but this was in March. We purchased the property, and in purchasing the property, we looked at the zoning around it. If you look, this is all commercial here, commercial there, all the way around. We have what they call a 1 mile buffer zone off of 30, which there's to be no residential in that area. Where all the people on Robert Wilson have their homes now is commercial.
Mr. Melanson, you don't mind?
That's not showing,
I mean,
sir.
yeah,
You need to
showing.
point to the thing in front of you, not up.
Yeah, we're looking at,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Okay,
All
if
right.
you got a pencil or something, there you go,
Okay.
something like that.
Here we are.
Perhaps you could move it up a little bit.
This is Robert Wilson Road.
Grady, slide it up a little bit, Ms. Melanson. There you
Okay.
go. Now
Thank
we
you,
can
sir.
see it all.
How's that?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. This is Robert Wilson Road. This is light industrial here, light industrial around, comes back to heavy industrial, light industrial on the other side. This line coming across here is what was established years ago, a 1 mile buffer zone, which was agreement with industry to not put any residential in that area. And when we purchased the property, we looked at all the stuff that was out there and tried to come up with something that would meet the regulations and what parish and industry wanted at that time. And upon purchasing it, I got with Travis. I've had 3 meetings with Travis. We met with the people on Stevens Road. I didn't want any rumors to get going, to let them know that we had purchased the property and was going to work with the residents in that area to satisfy them. Met with Travis, met with the people on Robert Wilson Road. We entered into agreement. You have a copy of the agreement in your package up there. Nothing has changed on that. This map here reflects exactly what they had asked us to do. No access to Robert Wilson Road, remain conservation fronting on Robert Wilson Road with a 100-foot buffer zone. Nothing has changed in that respect. Nothing at all. We attended the public hearing, and at the public hearing when we did the zoning and the parish commission and zoning approved it, these people met with me, and this is the stuff that they had asked for, and we didn't have a problem with it. The only thing that I said, as long as the parish would approve it, I was fine with it, and that's what we would do. As far as what Ms. Benitez said, I don't know where she got it from that we wasn't going to put any houses on the front of there. It's residential. You can't put metal buildings in there. All you have to do is read your code, what the parish ordinance tells you, what you can do and what you can't do. You cannot put metal buildings up there. It just so happens it's the end of year. I was looking at our tax notices. My tax bill this year for real estate in Ascension Parish is roughly $280,000. The average tax is $200 for a house on Robert Wilson Road. It would take 14.
Come on now, we're going to have to maintain order. We have to maintain order. Please sit down.
I'm just giving a
Okay,
representation.
let's keep this, and Mr. Malonzo, address the council if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Okay. Just a comparison. I was just saying what the tax notices are. I've been in business for my family's been in business for 75 years in this parish. I've been here 50 years. We've built 22 subdivisions, either developed, designed, constructed, or financed in Ascension Parish. And we do what we say we're going to do. As far as compliance is what's submitted, it's not for me to control what's submitted to the parish. They're in control of it. If it doesn't get built that way, it can't go on the market. At this time, I'd like to turn...
Okay, so we have Mr. Derek Murphy.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Derek Murphy with Quality Engineering representing SLC. This is what Mr. Malonzo has up and has shown y'all. The reason this isn't what actually is in your rezoning packet. The reason we did this, we want this particular exhibit shows what the surrounding zoning is, but he also wanted to make sure he highlighted in yellow here is the 100-foot buffer zone that the residents in this area asked and he agreed to. The reason that it's not in the rezoning packet, this is the rezoning packet that you have, is because that buffer zone is a planning item. It's not a zoning item. There is no buffer zone zoning. So therefore, that will come when we do a development plan as moving forward if the rezoning happens. Rezoning is a land use. What's the best use for this land? Is it conservation? Is it industrial? The flood zones, the traffic, all those other considerations is a planning item that is taken in the next step as we go forward through the process according to the ordinances. So as we go through the planning commission, we provide those documents, we provide that, we get vetted by the planning commission staff as well as review engineers and then move forward. So talking about we don't need industrial zoning, that's a market-driven item. If he can't sell those lots, and he's not going to build those lots. There's lots on the ground, but there's also lots being sold. So that's a market-driven base. So we're just asking tonight for your approval, and we're here to answer questions.
Okay, before we start the questions, I have one. Let's see, I have several cards. I'm going to just read them out. These are people that are present but do not wish to speak against Ms. Teresa Cott, Mr. Larry Anderson, Ms. Pam Savoy, Christy Lambright, Clay Lambright, and Clay Lambright Jr. and Clay Lambright. So we had whatever that number was, about 6 cards that were here but did not want to speak. Now, I'll open up for questions from the members. Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, can we have Mr. Jerome up here, our zoning expert?
Mr.
Jerome,
Jerome,
would
you
you?
want to tell
Jerome
him your
Fournier,
title? I might mess it up.
I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the parish. Right? And the zoning department falls under the Department of Planning and Development, so does the building department, as well as all the planning activities that occur in the parish.
Okay, Mr. Jerome, on conservation, what can an individual do on property zone conservation?
Conservation, you can put up residential units. The lot sizes are 1 acre minimum. So the smallest lot that a person can have in a conservation zone is 1 acre.
And all they can do is put a residential?
Right.
Okay. Jerome, I know you been in this negotiation or discussion for a while now. Have anything changed that been requested?
Not that I'm aware of, Councilman Joseph. I know that at the very beginning of the project, there's some discussion about having the entire property, not the entire property, but the property that's now, if I can put this up there, John, this, just so I can zoom in a little bit here. This area right in here is Robert Wilson Road. At the beginning, the entire part right here was considered as light industrial, and that was the very beginning of our negotiation. Then, during the course of conversation with some of the neighbors who live right here, and you can see the individual lots, they said that they were concerned about industrial development across the street from them. So, in conversations with Mr. Melanson, he agreed to put a 300-foot, keep this portion, not create one, but this portion of the property would remain conservation, okay? So the basic limits of the light industrial property would be 300 feet away from Robert Wilson Road. That was part of the negotiation at the very beginning. In my consideration, and as Mr. Murphy said, we are not looking at a development plan right now. We're only looking at a change to the zone, to the zoning criteria for the property, all right? Any parcelization of the property, once it's rezoned, will occur at the Planning Commission, and it will involve traffic studies, drainage studies. It will involve conditions of development, things of this sort. But before you tonight is just the zoning change, right?
And Jerome, I mean, I see light industrial on the property across the street from Mr. How long that been there, light industrial?
It's basically been there since we have had zoning in the parish, right? There was a criteria that was before that, which was
Keep order here, please.
There's a commercial category in the zoning ordinance that was available to property owners when the zoning ordinance was created. All right, that was eliminated, and everything that was in that commercial category switched to light industrial. All right, so the light industrial category, basically, it has either been a commercial or it's been light industrial since we've had a zoning ordinance.
Okay. All right, that's all. That's the only question I have. Thank you, Mr. Jerome.
Mr. Lawler.
I have a couple questions, and multiple people may have to answer these. I know one of the speakers for the neighborhood had mentioned that the master plan. What if the master plan, once it's done, indicates that this area is best served as a light industrial area?
Are you
asking?
Yeah, I guess it's not really hypothetical because I see the area that where the houses are is light industrial. My thought is a master plan will be done, and one of the statements was, let's wait a little bit, let's see what the master plan shows. My question is, well, what if the master plan comes back and says this area should be light industrial? Will y'all be accepting of that? No.
Well, I don't know if that's really gonna play out because about 35 to 40% of that property is in a flood zone. So if you look at your drainage study, traffic impacts, I mean, I understand the hypothetical, and you're right that, okay, when that study is
Actually, you
done,
have to
then
approach the
12 to
microphone.
18 months. Okay, maybe, but you're at, oh, I'm sorry.
That's good.
I mean, I understand your hypothetical, but I don't know if I really agree with your hypothetical because, again, if we look at, if we look at the flood zone area there, literally about well, whatever, but I mean, about 35–40% of this property is already located in the FEMA flood zone. So if we look at the master plan, which I think is a great idea that we need to have and follow, but I mean, if you look at a drainage study, you look at a traffic influx study, sure, I mean, we could what if this to death. What if we pass this today and that study comes back and says, none of this should have ever been industrial? Are we now gonna go back and have him rip up everything? When I bought this property in 2000, 2001, this was not light industrial. This was conservation. We got the history here. This was changed in 2016.
Without us knowing.
That's why we're here today, is because we never knew we were changed. And we keep getting, well, what does it matter? You're already industrial. Well, what does it matter that we go ahead and make this industrial? You're already industrial. Well, wait a minute. I never knew I was industrial. When I had my home appraised, it was not industrial. When I paid my money to buy my house, it was not industrial. So I understand your hypothetical, but I mean, what if the hypothetical is, it shouldn't be?
I understand.
Right, okay.
Trying to learn.
Thank you.
My next question is, what is the plan for this property? Do we have any plan for this property? For the medium industrial and the light industrial areas?
As far as the plan for this property, obviously it's gonna be some industrial type uses, chopping up of the property or something like that. In this particular case, because we only zoning and looking at the use of the land, we have some preliminary layouts and some different things like that, but until we get to the next step, we don't have a concrete plan in place.
Why, it was purchased in March, is my understanding. Why not purchase industrial property and not conservation property?
Yeah, I mean, why not buy something else? I mean,
Well, why not buy property that you don't have to zone? That we have lots of people that have industrial property that's up for sale that would probably want to sell it.
Very expensive.
At this,
Councilman.
at this, I mean, at this rate, at this size, do we have large pieces and large tracts such as this in this area? I don't think so. So
Yes, we do.
Not 400 acres.
There's some areas that can handle that in Modest.
In Modest, yeah.
And one other question. The buffer zone, I had heard 100 feet. Is it 300?
the conservation area that we're leaving there along Robert Wilson Road is a 300-foot area of conservation. What Mr. Malonzo has also agreed to is in the rear 100 feet to plant stuff like pine trees, oak trees, things like that as part of the agreement in order to buffer all the conservation, Robert Wilson, and these homes from any type of industrial use beyond that. So there's a 300-foot conservation zoning that is to remain, and then an additional 100-foot buffer that will be heavily planted.
Okay.
And that 100-foot buffer is what I was talking about earlier. That's a planning item. It's not part of the zoning per se, but it's part of the agreement that Mr. Melanson signed.
So the conservation area is actually going to be 400 feet wide?
No, conservation area is 300, and a part of that part of that is going to be heavily wooded inside a servitude that can't be touched.
Okay, I just making sure.
Okay, Mr. Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know where to begin thanking or not all the various speakers. This is, once again, a really tough one, but I'm going to have to side and believe with Ms. Anderson and the other speaker against this Buzzard Roost rezone said tonight. And I would offer, gentlemen, that we consider this. If we as a deliberative body, after hearing all the testimony, I don't know how much longer that's going to even be, were to rezone this property, I view it as a classic example, again, of what I spoke about earlier on the CPEX issue. This would be a good example of the uselessness of a master plan. It's been pointed out by those speakers. There it is again, a guiding principle is to preserve the rural character of the old Ascension. Whoops. To discourage development, mentioned this earlier, where infrastructure is inadequate. Whoops. I heard testimony about stabbing people in the back. People buy property. They get loans from banks. They raise their families, and they expect a certain, quote, quality of life in the area in which they bought, and they don't like being tricked. The hardest part of doing this job, I'm going to tell everybody tonight, is that, you know, when we do these things, I believe we're acting as elitist, and we're saying that we know what's best for the people in their behalf, and we don't even want to listen to them. Now, Mr. Melanson, I appreciate all the wonderful things that you've tried to elaborate, that you've done for the Parish of Ascension. But, sir, I humbly submit to you that what you have done in the past is just that. It's in the past, noteworthy or otherwise. It has really, in my mind, little to do with what you want to do right now in the present. Every case we know has to be considered on its own basis, its own merit. We have zoning laws. Why? Again, I was confused of when I was trained, but when I went through Capital Region Planning Commission training, we were told over and over again, it all starts with zoning and then flows, as Mr. Fournier was talking about, the planning. We have zoning laws for a reason. And Jerome, love you again, dog, but you said, quote, we're only looking at a zoning change here tonight, not a plan for the property. Oh, come on. We all know that rezoning totally changes how the land can be used. Learned that in CRPC training as well. So, and then in the topping, on the dropping, for the old chicken doctor tonight, looks to me like we're putting a whole bunch of commercial, if this rezone is approved, in wetlands, FEMA floodplain, 35, 40%, whatever the number is. I would just ask this, pun intended, is this smart growth, quote unquote? I thank everyone for listening.
Further discussion, questions? Mr. Turner?
I've been involved in this process pretty much since the beginning. I've met with the residents. I met with Mr. Malon's house as well, and we also met with another group of residents near the 73 portion of this land. And then as I always told everyone I've met with, that, you know, if the people in the area do not want this development done or rezone done, that I would always side with the people in my district. And, you know, as I've promised them, you know, I will vote no tonight on this rezone. Because the people in that area do not want that rezone. I understand Mr. Malonzo has done great things. You know, I try not to repeat stuff that's already been said by previous speakers. He has done great things, and you know, I sat down and talked to him. Was very upfront with him as well when I told him that if the area residents do not plan or do not want it, we would deny. I would vote to deny the rezone. And we did meet a couple of times. We met, I want to say 3 times, to try to work out some type of agreement, and we came pretty close, and I thought we did have one, but as we sit here today, the residents don't want it. And they cited very specific reasons why they do not want the rezone done. And Councilman Lawler made a good point that the land was originally conservation, and he could have brought property that was already zoned commercial if he wanted to sell it. And that was not done, and we know why the land, as far as conservation was brought, and to try to get it rezoned. And you also look at the other issues they brought up as far as to keep the rural characteristics. And by that being a conservation area, that is a perfect example of being rural. 1 acre lot homes, that's what most people would consider rural. You have 1 acre lots and a home per acre. I think, Jerome, how many houses could be built there? Is Jerome still here or did he leave? Oh. How many houses could be built on the 62 acres that's currently there?
Well, 62 acres, if you use 1 lot per acre minus all the streets and all the other requirements that are made in a development like that, parks, things of this sort, you're probably looking at about a 60-acre parcel, maybe 35, 40, something around that range.
So between 35 to 40 homes could be built there.
Right.
So
under,
the land
under the current categorization of conservation.
Right. So the land does still have some developmental value if it stays zoned as conservation, correct? And Jerome did have one other question. As far as if the residents currently on Robert Wilson are in light industrial, how were they allowed to build homes there if there was light industrial when they brought it?
Well, that's up for dispute. I'd like to meet with the property owners right now because in my research on this property and talking with Mr. Lance Brock, who is our zoning administrator, we understand that the property, when the zoning law came into being, was an older category of commercial, and then it was transferred when that category was eliminated out of the zoning ordinance. Everything that was categorized in that zoning, in that particular commercial category, was then rezoned as light industrial. All right. I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but I'll be happy to talk to the property owners about that.
She'll talk to you. We'll talk later. Does anybody, you have something else, Mr. Turner?
Well, let Mr. Fournier look at the maps, then
Okay.
I might have a follow-up question.
I pretty much know it. In 1998, we were called an industrial buffer, which is not industrial. It's for, I forget the adjective, light density residential or commercial. And there were other iterations of the map, but in 2004, we were called business park. And then we stayed that way until April 2016 when we became light industrial. We did not receive any notice on the one in 2004, which before that, it was allowed to make homes in the industrial buffer, not industry. I've got all the zoning codes. I ordered them all from the parish. This is what I've been doing for 4 months. So it's all here. This is, I don't know if you can see the date, April 2016. It's hard to zoom in where we are, but I mean, it's that y'all know what the map looks like today. This is 2011. There was a category called business park, and that's what it was labeled at that time. There was no light industry at that time, just in 2011. Just until April 2016, there was no light industry. There was one industry. That's it. Yeah, he bought it in March of 2017. So we believe we're a mistake that we're called light industrial. It's obvious we're houses. I've brought that up many times, but it's good to remind you. I don't know if y'all want to see these, pass them around. I'll keep them in a binder for historical purposes when this comes up again.
Okay, Mr. Turner.
And just in closing, like I promised the residents, they don't want it, so therefore I don't want it. I had one of them call me last night and ask me what was my personal preference as far as the rezoning. As I told him, I don't per se have a personal preference. When I ran for office, you know, when I knocked on everybody's, well, not everybody's, when I knocked on most doors, and I told them, you know, you let me know what you want, and I will fight for that on the council, and that's what I'm here to do tonight. And they don't want it, so therefore, I'm going to vote no tonight.
Okay, I have Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, Mr. Fournier, I know you probably wasn't here when this took place, but how could they get rezoned without knowing about it?
Well, any type of a mass rezone that occurs has to be advertised per public law. And if there's over, I think it's 10 property owners that are rezoned, there's no mass mailing that goes out. It's just basically notification occurs in the newspaper, right, or per the legal journal of the parish.
And do we know the history of this? Why did it get rezoned, or who brought it up to rezone last year?
I do not know.
That's a big question that probably needs to be answered.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so I have a question. Jerome, if you don't mind, would you put the zoning map up, the overall regionally?
Oh, this is the large regional map?
Well, you know, where you can see the zoning in the neighboring areas.
I got this one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is the zoning out in the entire area. This line here is the boundary for the city of Gonzales. Everything to the west of that is basically parish, unincorporated parish land. This area right here in this lighter shade is all light industrial. The red is heavy industrial. The beige line that runs through here is medium intensity, medium industrial. So you go from light to medium to heavy industrial, which are the industrial plants along the river. This property right in here is zoned heavy industrial, and that's the Ascension Commerce Park. I think Mr. L.J. Grzafi's property. This line right here defines Robert Wilson Road. So everything here, leading up to here is light industrial. All of the green is conservation, right? So we have conservation here that falls out into this area. This is Highway 73, and this is Highway 30.
We have the heavy industrial, and I know we don't have buffers that are spelled out in our zoning, and I regret that. But you know, what is our practice as far as buffers around heavy industrial?
Well, there has to be a buffer of, I think it's a quarter mile or so between heavy industrial and any type of other uses around there. That's why we have the medium intensity industrial along Highway 30 that buffers the heavy industrial along the river and Mr. Malasson's property here. So there's a buffer between that, the light industrial, and that area, right?
Well,
So
where's
there
that
is
buffer between the conservation and the heavy industrial? I mean, I know when we did the West Bank, we couldn't find anything in the regulations. Now, we did the medium, we did heavy industrial, medium industrial, and light industrial. We did 660 feet of each.
Right.
But we never found, at that time, we didn't find the regulations that really required that. But what I'm looking at is the heavy industrial that's really almost borders on that property. Is that correct? So if I'm looking at that where it juts out, the heavy industrial there, yeah,
Right
about
here.
where your pencil is,
Right.
yeah.
That is heavy industrial. Surrounding that heavy industrial is light industrial. And then there's this buffer right here between the heavy industrial and the conservation.
So somebody, if it were under the current zoning, somebody could build a house that is right, well, how far is that? A few hundred feet there?
Well, probably a little bit more. Yeah, probably about 300 to 400 feet.
350 feet?
250, I've been told by Mr.
250 feet? I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't think that's what we want in the parish, is to have, you know, the possibility of putting houses within a few hundred feet of something that's zoned heavy industrial.
Right.
What, I mean, well, I'm listening. Tell me what you,
Well, when the development plan comes forward, those buffers would put in place during the development plan. That's part of the subdivision regulations. So not the zoning, but the subdivision regulations. It will occur when that happens.
so if we, and I didn't quite understand the 60 houses. I thought there was more acreage here than 60 acres. Is that correct?
I think Councilmember Turner was just asking a hypothetical. If there were 60 acres, how many houses could you get on a 60-acre piece of property?
Well, the reason I'm saying 62.75.
62.75?
Right, yes.
Okay. So so around the
Was
same
on the
number that
ordinance?
I mentioned before. So when you pull out streets, you pull out required recreation areas, drainage, things of this sort, you could probably, out of 60 acres, get maybe 35 to 40 houses.
Do you mind putting that zoning map back up that shows how close that is to the heavy industrial? Okay. So what, if that's only 60 acres, those two tracks?
This tract is 330 acres. This light industrial part is, they're both 330 together. All right, so split that in half and,
So how many houses could you put on that 330 acres?
this is 99 acres, and this was 228. Right? I'm sorry?
How many houses could you put on 300 acres, 327 acres?
So let's say, use a general figure of maybe 65 to 70% of that, the acreage. Because we're talking about a minimum of 1 acre lots, right? So, so with.
So you're looking at maybe 200 houses that you could put back there?
Yes.
Under the current zoning?
Under current zoning.
And you could
that's-
put.
That's a general figure.
Yeah, I understand that. And then, and some of those could be within 200 feet of that heavy industrial property?
No.
250 feet?
Within 250 feet, yes.
Yeah.
There's a pipeline that runs through here, and there's also a large power corridor that runs through here. So they're very limited as to what they can do in those areas, all right?
So under the current, under the current zoning, what do you say restricts houses from being close to the heavy industrial?
On the development plan, we have rules in terms of the distance between a house, a lot for residential use, and the adjacent industrial uses.
Well, how are you going to do that if it's zoned properly for residential?
Well, there still has to be that buffer, remember? We have required buffers in the past that are adjacent to industrial properties for residential.
660 feet.
Right, so,
660 feet, correct?
That's just the number that we picked
No.
when we did the.
no.
That could be like a park
I
area.
said about a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, it's 660
About a quarter of a
feet.
mile,
It's
yeah.
written somewhere.
Yeah.
So that could be like the walking
Somewhere.
park,
It
the
is.
drainage area.
Because CF had the same problem with West Ascension.
It's a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
Can we get have you got the answer to that, Jerome? You say so you could restrict housing, even though it's properly zoned, you could restrict housing on that?
Yes, when they
With
put
that?
the development plan together, yes. When the development plan comes before us, there are certain criteria that needs to be met in the development plan. And one is a buffer between residential uses and industrial uses.
Does it say heavy industrial, or is it any industrial use?
I don't know the exact answer to that right now.
I know, we're gonna have to just stay with the person at the podium for right now, I'm sorry. I thought now I agree with you.
All right.
I'd like to find out that answer. I'll be honest, I'm concerned that we have, and I realize it's existing zoning, but we have zoning there that allows, really residential right next to this heavy industrial, and I can't imagine that's something that's good for us.
Well, right now you have residential that's within the light industrial area. All right, so.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that.
But it wasn't
They
last
knew
year.
that happened.
Okay, Mr. Turner, you have something?
Just one follow-up question. When I read in the ordinance, it says the ordinance amends official zoning designation for a 62.75 acre tract. Why is the ordinance reading that way instead of the entire acreage?
I'm not sure, that might be an error in the ordinance.
You bet.
Sure can't vote.
Yeah.
This came from, this came from from the zoning department.
Did it? Okay, yeah.
So,
Okay, so we're at the public hearing stage right now. We're still at the public hearing stage. Mr. Satterley.
well, just to be sure, while Jerome's still up there, so are we now saying the first sentence on the purpose where Mr. Turner alluded to, it's 62.75 acres, that should read 327.651 acres?
I don't know. I don't know if we're ready for this tonight.
It should reach 327.651, yes, that's a typo that they made.
Yeah.
That's an awful big typo.
In fact, if medium industrial allows you to put houses on it also. Yeah. Looking at a zoning map right now, at the zoning table.
Might be under a contract. Mr. Satterley.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to be for sure, I'm not recommending we defer this again. I mean, I'm just asking that we be certain if and when we're going to, not when, hopefully we're going to vote, that's 62.75, and I believe legal just indicated, yes, that's an error. It should be 327.651. So that's a simple change. It would not require us to come back. We've had a lot of testimony on both sides here tonight. Just want to be sure. I'm not opting to delay this any further.
Okay, so we're still in the public hearing stage.
Motion to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman, since we don't have any more public speakers.
Got a motion by Councilman Johnson.
Second.
Second by Councilman Satterley. Any opposition? Public hearing is closed. I'll go to the ordinance. Item number 22.
Question.
Mr. Joseph.
Legal counsel.
Yes, sir.
The comment on the 62 acres, it's just talking about the 62 acres in conservation they want to change? They want to leave as?
This is, the ordinance is amending, is to change the zoning designation for 327.651 acres. That was a typo that was done by the zoning department.
So, Mr. Legal,
Yes.
so we can make an amendment to that?
Yes, we're gonna amend, I'll amend, the ordinance amends the official zoning designation for 327.651 acre tract.
On the purpose?
At the bottom.
Yeah, bottom.
In the heading, it says 327.
Yeah.
So the conservation part on the map, I'm just have one more, if that map go back up and you look at Robert Wilson Road, they have the L-shaped property is gonna stay conservation. So we're not changing that piece of property, we only changing the 300 and.
I don't have a map.
I'll put it
Mr.
back.
Jerome,
Yeah,
I just wanna
correct.
make sure I understand.
This green is conservation.
Can't
So
see
this
it.
L-shaped portion right here is gonna stay conservation, right? And that is 300 feet from Robert Wilson Road to the north and to the west, right? So that will remain conservation.
So this ordinance had nothing to do with that part of that property?
Correct.
Okay.
Huh? Oh, right. So we're at the ordinance stage. And the ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to medium intensity and light industrial zoning review ID 1399.17, portion of tract Z, being a portion of budget rules for SLC LLC, located on the northwest corner of West Robert Wilson Road and North Robert Wilson Road. There a motion to move the ordinance?
Motion to move.
A motion to move the ordinance. There's a second to move the ordinance.
Second.
Second by Councilman Cluott. Motion by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman Cluott. Discussion. Any discussion, any questions, any opposition?
Opposition.
We have
Opposition.
opposition. Madam Secretary, please open the machines. Six yes and 4 no. Please close the machines. Everybody's voting. The ordinance is adopted. Item number 23, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreation, Article 2, to include Lamar Dixon Expo Center fees. Mr. Parrington.
Purpose to amend the ordinance adopted November 5th, 2009, amended on December 17th, 2000, and June 3rd, 2010, April 3rd, 2014, and November 19th, 2015 by the governing authority in and for the parish of Ascension, provided for certain administrative functions relative to the continued operation and maintenance of Lamar Dixon Expo Center, subject to certain restrictions. Whereas the Charter of the Parish of Ascension, Section 1 requires an ordinance for all acts of regulated rate or other charges for services provided for the parish and for all amendments to those acts. Whereas the ordinance authorizing the Parish of Ascension to assess and collect certain fees for the operation of Lamar Dixon Expo Center was adopted by Ascension Parish Council on November 5th, 2009 meeting, amended on December 17th, 2009, and at the July 2nd, 2011 meeting, April 3rd, 2014 meeting, and November 19th, 2015 meeting. Now be it ordained by Ascension Parish Governing Authority that Exhibit A is hereby replaced in its entirety with Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof, and included in the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parks and Recreation, Article 2, Regulations for Specific Parks, Division 1, Lamar Dixon Expo Center. The ordinance shall be in full effect as submitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Public hearing.
Motion.
A motion by Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Cluott to open the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Got a motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Close the public hearing.
Motion to move the ordinance.
Item number 25. Got a motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Cluott to move the ordinance. Any discussion? Any opposition? The ordinance is adopted. Item number 26, reading of the ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, Section 18-4, Ascension Parish Public Library Board of Control. Mr. Parrington.
To amend Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions, and Authorities, Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, whereas Section 602, enactment of an ordinance permits the parish to make and amend an ordinance as it may deem necessary and proper for the good government and order protection of persons' property for the preservation of public health, safety, and welfare of the parish and its inhabitants. Whereas Ascension Parish Council desires to amend Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions, and Authorities, Section 18-4, Ascension Parish Library Board of Control, Section 3, the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, Chapter 18-4 be amended and more fully described as Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part hereof. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of the ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of or federal or state agency of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions, and such holding shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance hereof. Ordinances, resolutions, and regulations are parts of ordinances, resolutions, or regulations inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such inconsistency. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Public hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Johnson, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to open the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Got a motion by Councilman Satterley, second by Councilman Johnson. Close the public hearing. Item number 28, the ordinance. Motion to move the ordinance by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Lawler. Any discussion? Any opposition? Ordinance is adopted. Item number 29.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Councilman Cagnolati.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Do you have a comment?
No, wait, before we go.
I know.
The Transportation Committee meeting will be moved to January 17th. That's a Wednesday before the second Parish Council meeting.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.